What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Thinktwice, a weekly show where we talk about things going on in the world of Magic the Gathering, gaming, and pop culture. As always, I'm your host, Justin Parnell, joined by my co-host, Ali Aintrazi. And for episode 6, we're going to be talking about leaks in Magic, a new segment we're calling Story Circle, where we focus on a particular Magic story, this time Nicol Bolas, and what Magic can learn from Hearthstone's newest expansion. All right, buddy. You had a quite an eventful week last week, right?
Yes. This week and last week in particular were very eventful. Did a lot of things. Actually went to the Richmond event and also went to the beach. So 2 big things.
Okay, tell me about. So you played in the Star City Games Open, the Modern Open in Richmond. And as we talked about last week, Modern is your absolute favorite format above every other format by a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So going to this format, or going to this tournament rather, I was not sure what I wanted to play or what I wanted to do. And I was just looking at decks that were doing well, and apparently Blue-White Control kept posting up numbers, and I gave one to Asif was doing well with it. Shaheen Sharani was talking about it. So I started looking into it more and more. I decided to play Blue-White Control.
Now, last week, okay, let me stop you there. We literally were talking last week about how you need to be doing something on this unfair side in Modern, and we even named like 3 decks that play fair Magic that have a lot more difficult time winning. You specifically named Blue-White Control as one of those decks.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's just still I get excited, man. It's like, oh man, a control deck fine doing well in Modern. Let me try it out.
Yeah, because you talked to Shaheen, so he of course is going to be singing praises of who knows what.
Well, it wasn't only him either. Like, it was multiple people doing pretty well with it, and I took like a solid foundation and then made adjustments that I thought were correct, and was convinced by good friend Harlan Fire that to switch, and
then
I think in the end it came back to bite me.
Well, I mean, as always, you're known as a brewer, so like, I don't know, if you listen to someone else when you know what's in your heart, what you want to play, that's on you. I told you that when we were talking over the weekend. I was like, look, you got nobody to blame but yourself. If you know what you like to do, you know the cards you like to play. Well, tell me about the deck, I guess. Well, I won't beat you down too much yet.
I mean, it was basically a Blue-White Control deck with a couple of Logic Knots, some Mana Leaks, had Getting the Trials. Like, Shaheen was against Getting the Trials, but I ignored him there, and I played Getting the Trials. I did not want to play Getting Jura. Instead, I want to play Getting Ally of Zendikar. And I was talked out of playing Getting Ally of Zendikar by Harlan to play Jura. So we went with Gideon Jura. And then we had like some sideboard things where I was told you should play Geist Draft. I didn't think Geist was good enough. I want to play Shadow of Doubt because I thought the card was really good and just really powerful against the new Hour of Promise Valak Pit decks. And I was talking about playing multiple of those. The only thing Harlan talked me into that was really good was playing a second Ceremonious Restriction. But other than
that card is as good against Affinity and Eldrazi Tron.
And just Tron, yeah.
Yeah, and just Tron, if people are still hanging around doing that.
Yeah, so yeah, like the only good thing was was the second Ceremonious Restriction. Everything else I feel like I should have made the change. Oh, I also want to play Torrential Gearhulk.
Yeah, I love Gearhulk.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that card's sweet. I want to play that card in like Vintage with Mishra's Workshop.
Oh, that's sweet.
I'm trying to figure that out. I don't know how, but one day.
I mean, sounds powerful. Nothing else.
Okay, so you said you went to the beach also? You had a beach trip.
We went to Myrtle Beach, or people down here call it Dirty Myrtle.
Yeah, well, that's accurate.
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to rain. Did not rain.
That's good.
Not that much. And we had a lot of fun. It was Aiden's first beach trip. He was running around
Oh,
everywhere.
that's good.
He was playing in the sand. He was he was too scared to go too deep in the ocean.
Yeah.
But
Aiden's a little scaredy cat, though.
He is. He's a little scaredy cat, but it's okay. He had a ton of fun. He loved playing in the sand. He loved just running into the water with his feet and then like jumping over the waves, but he's only jumping like an inch.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, he's just like he's jumping enough so he can get off the ground.
Yeah.
To fill everybody in, Aiden is Ali's 4-year-old son. So
yep.
he looks like a tiny baby version of Ali.
And he's super afraid and timid of a lot of things.
Yeah, he's a very cautious child. He's very cautious of everything.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad he got to go and play in the waves and
he loved
do
it.
Something. Yeah, that's awesome.
Lily loved it too. Lily was way more adventurous. Though. She wanted to boogie board. She wanted to learn how to surf. She wanted to do all these things. She was just like, I'm here. Let's do it. She's the opposite. She's not cautious. She just wants to
jump
go. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lily is Ollie's girlfriend's daughter.
Mm-hmm. And she's 6.
She's 6.
And they've known each other basically since Aiden
all
was
of Aiden's
alive.
Life. Aiden's whole life, essentially. Almost his whole life, since he was about 6 months old.
Yeah. So they're basically brother and sister. Aiden is on her.
Yeah, as far as they're concerned, they don't really have memories before that.
Yep.
So I also got to go to the beach. I as we talked about last week, I went to go. My parents live in North Myrtle Beach, so over the weekend I went to go visit them, which is great because I live in Roanoke, Virginia. It's a brutal 5.5 hour, depending, sometimes more, drive to where they live in North Myrtle Beach. It's a drive I dread, but I don't get to see my parents very much, so I do it 2 or 3 times a year, and it's nice. I enjoyed my time with them. I do not like South Carolina at all, and I don't like Myrtle Beach very much. I've been going there since I was like a little kid, and I've never liked it. I think it's super touristy, and there's all sorts of traffic, and it's a bunch of people that I'm not interested in being around, but it's fine. It's fine.
Hear all these negative things, but it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I'm not saying don't go. I'm just saying that the whole state's crap.
We met a family that was from Baltimore that came to Myrtle Beach.
Oh, that's good.
So they traveled a long way from Myrtle Beach. So.
Yeah. Disappointment.
No, they liked it. I guess there's not much they did.
All right, good for them. You know what? I'm happy for them. I'm happy they liked it.
Yep.
So on the way back, it's such a long drive. I always get really sleepy when I'm driving.
Yeah.
Anytime I drive over an hour, I get really sleepy. And
coffee.
Well, I don't drink See, so the viewers probably don't know. I don't drink caffeine at all. I don't drink coffee. Crazy. I don't drink soda. So sometimes it's like the only time I ever get caffeine is like from like chocolate, which I eat all the time, and like sweet tea has a little bit of caffeine in it. But outside of that, that's like the very most. Like sweet tea is like the most, and it's like a giant sweet tea has like 1/8 of the amount of caffeine of like a 12-ounce soda. So it's not very much, and it's not anything you can rely on. So I always try to listen to music and upbeat stuff. So I was like, I'm really getting tired. I really need to get something that's gonna pump me up. So a few weeks ago, I was playing a game with my girlfriend's family. One of her sisters and her brother came in, and we're playing this pop culture trivia game. And one of the answers to one of the questions was Spice Girls. So I decided for an hour and a half, I was going to listen to all the Spice Girls songs to keep me awake. So I did. I was jamming out. That was the very first album, all the way back in 1996. that I bought with my own money. Very first CD.
Oh, dang, son.
I know. So on that note, after I've talked about how I listen to Spice Girls for an hour and a half, you know what? It's not even that bad. It's pretty good pop music. If you like pop music and don't care if it's cheesy or not, jump back in the Wayback Machine 20 years ago.
Yeah, 90s Machine.
Yeah, it's there. It's super 90s, but it's all good. Yeah. It's all good in the hood. Okay. All right. We have a couple of topics coming up today. We have Story Circle Nicol Bolas, which is a new segment for us. We're going to talk about Hearthstone and the new expansion for that. But first, we're going to talk about leaks in Magic. So we will be back to talk about that in just a minute. So earlier this year, I want to say 3 or 4 months ago. No, I guess it was it was 2 months ago. It was 2 to 3 months ago. Someone got a hold of some cards and uncut sheets of both the Commander 2017 product and Ixalan, which comes out in early October / late September. This is not the first time that leaks have happened. This is something that's happened all in Magic's history, but this was an interesting one because Wizards of the Coast has done such a good job in preventing this type of thing from happening for years, honestly.
Yeah. The last big one was
New Phyrexia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was the last big one. And there's been like a card here and there, but that's ultimately that doesn't mean anything. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes maybe they're put out there to drive up excitement, but this is definitely not. This is not.
No. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I do know. Ollie, how do you? I guess you tell me how you feel about them. Do you feel like there's a place? Do you feel like there's a place in Magic? Obviously, not from Wizards of the Coast standpoint, but I don't blame them. But do you feel like there's a place in Magic for this type of thing to happen, and what does its affect?
I think there's a place for it. Like I think a purposeful maybe leak is cool. Like. They're not saying anything, but maybe someone finding a card or something, just a card or something cool, like, hey, look at this. And then, getting people hyped about the set and can't wait for spoiler season, which is next week or something like that. I think that's cool. But getting a whole set or all the rares or what have you, I honestly, though, I love that. I used to, like, when New Phyrexia was spoiled, I thought that was kind of cool. I didn't really understand what was going on. It's like, cool. We know what's coming out. We know what we can anticipate beforehand. And I don't have to worry about like pros knowing what cards are coming out for the Pro Tour before I do. Now I know as much as they do. Because back in the past, there's something called the God Book where some pros or some people got the God Book and they're able to see what was in the set before anyone else did.
Yeah.
So I thought so when the New Phyrexia happened, I thought it was cool because I felt like on the same level. Also, I got to see new cards early, and that was sweet.
And it's like all of this information, and you're like overwhelmed, and you're like, it's like you get the whole thing dropped on you, and you're like going through these. Essentially, like, imagine if it was a book, and you're just like going through these pages, like soaking up all this information you possibly can.
Yeah.
And that's like, that could be fun. I guess, right?
I mean, it definitely is. Or if you find a box of Magic, you have no idea what cards are in there, but someone gave them to you, and you're going through and you're finding all these new Magic cards. Like, oh, this is cool. I didn't know this existed.
Yeah, that's a much better example.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's like. And at that time, it's cool because you have no idea what the consequences are. Not for necessarily you, well, for you too, but for everybody. You have no idea what has happened because someone has leaked all this information out or put it out there on the internet.
Yeah. It's and I think earlier when I was younger, I think I felt the same way. I wanted to know as much as I could know as soon as I could possibly know it. And it's difficult, and even now, when these things came out, and I think most people have looked at them. It's almost impossible not to. Like once the information is out there, I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't exist.
It's weird because since we're talking about leaks and spoilers, I kind of am now in a way, because if people don't know, like something else, like the Game of Thrones thing was spoiled. A new episode was spoiled this week, which is very similar to Magic. Like,
yeah, definitely.
It's not being spoiled. I did not watch it. I did not want to watch it. I'm going to wait till Sunday till I watch it.
Me neither. I'm in the same boat. And I mean, I don't necessarily think it's a maturity thing, but it takes restraint to be able to do that. But it's also, you're kind of caught in the middle, right? Because if you're like, okay, I don't want to look at any of these, but then if you're on Twitter and you're on Reddit and even if you're like at a Grand Prix and talking to other people and they're talking about these cards, it's difficult to not be involved in those type of conversations because you just don't want to know.
Yeah.
The big thing is, to me, this is not what Wizards wants. Especially like in the last few years, they've created such an amazing way to show off new cards and new mechanics. Like they're building a story around, and I'm not even talking about like the story, like Magic story. I'm talking about they're building a story around the order and the days that cards are previewed. It's a very particular thing as someone who's, I've like through Commander Versus, I've gotten preview cards before, and they're like, this is the day that your card's going to be previewed, because they want to build a narrative through that. And if you don't have that, you miss out on stuff like the Hour of Devastation stuff, where like at Grand Prix Vegas, they built this giant sandcastle that had the insect god on the side of it, but you didn't know what the insect gods were.
Yeah.
And if you have stuff like that, and you're creating all of these cool things, they did the same with Shadows over Innistrad to show off preview cards. They put them into this haunted house thing at a GP, and you could like go into the haunted house and it was like a maze, and you could like go around and like find preview cards inside that. If you have this for this type of thing for Ixalan, it's going to be really difficult for them because someone has taken all of that away. And they're not just taking it away from Wizards, they're taking it away from every single person who would get enjoyment out of that. Like it's, I don't know. Obviously, I'm sure you guys could tell, like, personally, I won't speak for Ali, but I am extremely strongly against this type of thing happening.
Well, it makes sense. It's like, let's say you get a present for Christmas, right? If you know what's inside, when you're opening, it's going to be like, oh, cool, yay, look what I got, yay. But you already knew, and the excitement it's fake, it's not real, and it's not genuine, and it's just not as appealing.
Yeah. That's not, and there's, with Magic, it's not just, Wizards having carefully laid plans to reveal these cards. Imagine if you, what if you write articles for Gathering Magic. If you get a preview card for Ixalan, what are you to do? If it's a rare that was been on this sheet that someone just decided to post all over the internet, it's really difficult because it's like, this isn't a new card. This is something that we've seen before. It's not as exciting. It takes it away from everybody. And not only that, like, I think when you get this huge dump of information, it makes it, I don't want to say, I guess I'll say it makes it more difficult to correctly evaluate cards. Because you get all of the cards, you start focusing, most people start focusing on, you identify like, what's the 5 best cards in the set, what's the 10 best cards in the set. And sometimes you miss stuff, and you're making your judgment based on this initial dump of information, and then you kind of just forget about everything that you don't remember from that initial thing. If it's not one of those 5 or 10 best cards, you're going to forget about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the case anytime this happens. That's dangerous,
Yeah.
one, because I think it causes people to misevaluate cards in the beginning. And two, and this is a big thing, it changes the secondary market of card prices. You were going to say something, Ollie. I know I kept talking, so I'll let you jump in real quick.
Oh, it's fine. I was just going to say, in regard to spoilers, or leaks rather, not spoilers, I actually just know, I remember one card from there, from the leaks, and that's it. The rest I've forgotten about because I feel like this card is probably the best one that appeals to me or whatever. But I also didn't really look through all the cards. This is the first time I actually did not actually look through all the cards. I looked at a couple, and after a while I was like, you know what? This is not worth it. I'm just going to not look at the rest.
Good on you for doing that.
Yeah. And it's weird. Actually, I actually didn't. I look at 10 of them. They seemed kind of cool. And I was like, and then it got hard. It got hard to read. Got harder to decipher. And then after that, I was like, you know what? It's not worth it. I can just wait. They're all going to come at the same time anyway, so there's no reason to really look. And I guess I'm also going to those events now too, so I'm not talking to people as much about Magic and spoilers or leaks or what's coming up. It's usually about Standard, Modern, or even Commander now, but not so much new things coming in the future that's been leaked or whatever. So that's kind of nice, and that helps.
One of the things I talked about earlier on the show when we were talking about, I think we were talking about Spider-Man, is when I nowadays, like for the last 3 years, I have a rule for myself that whenever I decide that I want to watch a movie, like a new movie that's coming out, once I decided that I want to watch that movie, I stop looking at any previews or trailers or finding out any information about that movie. Because I want to go in as completely blind as possible. And that's, I want to take that approach to Magic too. I want to be able to fall into however Wizards want me to gain this information. It's more enjoyable that way, and it's like you said, like do I really want to be spending my time like zooming in on this pixelated image to find out what this bulk rare does?
That was the thing. Like it was
probably not.
Yeah. Do you want to watch Spider-Man in theaters and on the big screen, or do you want to watch it with some guy shaking the camera around and the best scene you can't really see because it's blurry, and you won't get the full enjoyment out of like I'd much rather go to the theater and watch the movie I want to watch in full HD and on the big screen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so tricky, and I'll get back to the card pricing in a minute, but you have to have restraint to be able to do that, because as Magic players, we want to see new cards. Everyone is excited about new cards. That is the thing that is ubiquitous among Magic players, is, putting in air quotes, spoiler season is something that everybody loves.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so good now because Wizards has done such a good job at crafting that experience that you are doing yourself a disservice when you feed into this. If you're sharing these images, I'm not saying if you're looking at them, because it's really hard not to. I looked at all of them. I mean, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I wish they didn't exist, but I'm also not going to pretend like they don't.
Sure. So, I did not, but
yeah,
sure.
Good for you. I wish that I didn't. I wish that I had just not. And that's the thing. I only remember a handful of stuff too, because it's
I remember just one card and that's it.
But back on pricing, for I work at Star City Games. I'm the acquisitions manager. One thing that we don't do is we actually don't list cards, like pre-order cards or anything like that, until they're officially previewed by a Wizards outlet. One, to make sure that they're real, obviously, because that'd be foolish to try to sell a card that we don't know what it does. But two, because I think everyone kind of feels the same way, that it's better for the game and for the natural pricing of cards during pre-order season for them to be previewed regularly in natural ways. when you have giant dumps like this, card prices, everyone, I'll speak for myself. I think pre-order prices are high on everything. It doesn't matter what company you're buying it from. Doesn't matter if you're buying it from Star City Games. Doesn't matter if you're buying it from Channel Fireball, TCG Player, Card Kingdom, whatever. Almost all of the card prices that you're going to see during pre-orders are going to be higher than the card prices are going to be in a month from then, 2 months from then, 3 months from then on the vast majority of cards.
Yep.
This is something with leaks that hurts that significantly because it makes those prices usually not accurate. People don't have enough time to evaluate each of the cards on an individual basis, which is what normal spoiler season allows you to do. So that can be good, it can be bad. You might end up overpaying on something because it wasn't properly evaluated by people with their pricing cards. And then same for the card companies. They might overprice something and then not sell it, and then they don't make any money. So it literally just hurts. It sounds weird, but it literally hurts everyone. It's on different cards, but it's just, it doesn't allow for the most organic way for things to happen in the Magic economy. I don't know. That's a whole different topic that I could go on about longer if people are interested. So if you guys are interested, let me know at jparnell1 on Twitter if that's something that you guys want me to talk about, because I could certainly talk about Magic economy and stuff like that, since that is something that I care about even before I started working at Star City. But obviously it's part of my job, and I don't mind sharing my thoughts and feelings on it, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Ollie, any other thoughts on leaks and unsavory previews?
I just want to say that I mentioned earlier that when I was younger, I did enjoy the leaks. I didn't know what I was expecting, and they were cool. But I am definitely now on the side of don't leak. I don't want to see them. The consequences are too severe. Like I got Liliana Death Majesty to write about last time for.
Yeah, that's like one of the best. You got one of the best cards in the set. Imagine if you did not have that. If you weren't the first person to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it sucks, and I also want to say that I am against those kind of things. So.
All right, that is our official stance on Thinktwice. Anti-leaks, pre-spoilers. We don't want to see them, don't want them to exist.
Yep.
We even still, especially if you guys have different opinions, we would love to hear any agreeing or dissenting opinions. This is a conversation I think is really interesting. I would love to have with people. So you guys can let us know at jparnell1 on Twitter, at Ali Aintrazi on Twitter. Hit us up. Let us know what you guys think. Okay.
I guess.
All right. We are going to be going into our new segment we are calling Story Circle. We'll see you guys in a minute.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about the new segment. We're talking about Story Circle. Story Circle is basically a segment where Justin and I will discuss a character or a plane or something lore-wise involving magic. And today we're talking about the big baddie himself, Nicol Bolas.
Oh baby, your favorite and mine.
Yes, all our favorites. Maybe not all our favorites, but a lot of people's favorites.
I don't know. I feel like you wavered a little bit on all Nicol B recently, but
maybe a little bit.
You know what? We'll get to that at the end of the story.
Sure.
All right. So lead us off.
Before I get too into this, I just want to say I believe in the beginning of the story of Nicol Bolas' origin. I don't think Wizards had a direction for Nicol Bolas, so part of his story is confusing, and even I don't exactly know what's going on 100% of the time, because it's just very strange. But we do know that Nicol Bolas is born a long time ago with a bunch of other Elder Dragons on Dominaria. They had all the power, they had control everything, and usually when people have a bunch of power, a war happens to see who becomes the king or who becomes the ruler or who becomes, basically who takes charge. And so that war happened, and it was called the Dragon War. And that's where all the other dragons fought, and the ones that came on top were actually Nicol Bolas and his family members, which were
Chromium, Vivictus Asmodi, Pallades Mores, and
Arcadus Sabbath.
There you go.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And then they also had children too, but those are the ones that came out on top, and they each went their separate ways and did their own things. But we won't get too into that because that's their story. But what ended up happening was Nicol Bolas' left head. The rest die or get manipulated or whatever. But what happens to them is basically they become what worms are in Magic, like WURM. Some of the dragons become worms, which has become part of Dominaria. Mm-hmm. Then we get Vashino, which are also a different form of a dragon. And then we also get drakes.
They're like the lizard people, right? The Viashanos?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we also get drakes, which are little baby dragons.
So, like a lot of early characters in Magic's lore, there was kind of this nebulous idea of a story. And they try to tell a story through cards and flavor text. There wasn't a ton of outsourced written narrative like we have now. So Nicol Bolas, to me, was kind of one of those characters that they threw on a card and that kind of became popular, so they tried to build this story around him. You saw you see this happen in a handful of other cards, just to throw some off the top of my head, that you've seen in flavor text or on cards that didn't have their own, like Jaya Ballard. She didn't have a card until Time Spiral. Ugin was flavor text on the card Ghostfire in Future Sight before he was even remotely part of the storyline whatsoever.
Yep.
And there's a handful of other ones, but Nicol Bolas is certainly the most notable one because one of Magic's earliest characters, and as of today, the last character in the story we even interacted with.
Yes. And usually all the bigger dragons, or quote-unquote elder dragons, have some sort of power or their own unique trait. Ugin is not an elder dragon, but he actually invented his own kind of magic, which I won't get into because that'll be part of Ugin's storyline, but Bolas's special trait or unique thing that he has is his touch. Bolas's touch is basically a mind shatter effect. If he touches you, you can't even form a coherent thought, and your mind is, lack of a better word, just shattered. So that's kind of cool.
This is something that we actually see on the card Nicol Bolas, just the original Nicol Bolas card from Legends. The one where he's lounging back reading what I would imagine is the biggest book in the entire multiverse. Yeah. I don't think they thought about scope for or scale for that one, but either way. But yeah, when Nicol Bolas hits you, you discard your hand. And obviously, libraries and hands of Magic are your ability to remember and cast spells, so they've kind of weaved the card into the story, which is always super cool when that happens.
Yeah. He does that on the new Nicol Bolas card, where his plus ability will exile 2 cards from all opponents' hands or your opponent's hand. That's basically his mind shatter effect.
And not only that, on the Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh, the plus 1, you go into your opponent's library essentially from the top, and you start exiling cards, which represents kind of slicing the top off of someone's mind, their sanity, until you pluck something from their mind and then use it against them.
Yep.
So a lot of flavor. All of Nicol Bolas' cards and things around him are very flavorful, which is probably why he has been one of our favorites for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about after the the Dragon War and Nicol Bolas' other Elder Dragon siblings turned into, or were defeated, or died, and turned into the other species, then what happens?
Nicol Bolas actually ascends during the Dragon War, and he actually fights the first other, or what we know, the first other planeswalker. Nicol Bolas actually battles a demonic Leviathan. This is the first recorded planeswalker battle on Dominaria, and it's a battle that destroys the land, that reduces much of the landscape. And what ends up happening, I can't remember how long the war lasts, but it lasts a very long time. But what ends up happening is Nicol Bolas defeats this Leviathan planeswalker and ends up devouring it, so he can gain its power as well. Mm-hmm. So Nicol Bolas wins. He eats the planeswalker Leviathan and becomes even stronger.
So once you have, you just have a powerful dragon,
yes,
who can use magic, and then as during the battle, as it's in the heat of the moment, he ascends to become a planeswalker. A long time later, then he, like you said, first battle, he fights another planeswalker and then literally consumes them. Because, again, Bolas, still a dragon. So he literally can eat other stuff.
Yeah. So the fight lasted a month, and he feasted on Leviathan for over a course of a year. That's how big this Leviathan was.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that, he went to this plane called Madara.
That's where the fight was between Leviathan and him.
That's where the fight happened. Okay, so while he's on Madara, as he's just chilling and eating this Leviathan for breakfast, lunch, dinner, brunch, second breakfast, second lunch, and dessert,
yes,
he becomes the emperor of Madara. Is Madara a plane, or is it just a place on Dominaria?
I believe it's just a place on Dominaria.
Place on Dominaria? Okay.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
And he stays as the emperor for Madara for 400 years. Which in Bolas time is like blink of an eye, I believe, at that point.
Yeah, he was emperor there for 400 years.
Okay. At some point, he basically kills off everyone else that was in any sort of rule over this I keep wanting to say plane, over this space area.
Yeah.
And made something called the Imperial Shrine, which is basically where he ruled from. During that time, to be his guard for the Imperial Shrine, he created what was called an Imperial Champion. Mm-hmm. And that creature or thing ends up being Tetsu Umezawa, which is a card in Kamigawa, my absolute favorite block. Just kidding, it's my least favorite. And apparently, after Tetsu Umezawa had been created, he did not want to be the Imperial Champion and turned on Bolas and actually killed him. Ended up actually killing Bolas, right?
Yes, only because what happened was Bolas was meditating on his meditation plane, and he was unaware that. So the meditation plane is the pools of becoming. This is the realm.
Yeah, that's something that we see on Plane Chase. Mm-hmm. It's actually a Plane Chase plane is Bolas's meditation realm.
Yes. This place is a mysterious realm that can only be reached from Dominaria and only by very skilled wizards. So basically what happened, the plane actually changes shape depending on who's there, and it reflects the thoughts of people that are there and sometimes their future, which is why Bolas likes being there, or other wizards like being there, because
that's okay.
So they can see everything and know everything. So what happens is Bolas is there in his spirit or mind, and then Umezawa was able to defeat Bolas.
So he literally kills him.
Yes.
Okay. So Bolas. So how? Okay. So Bolas is dead. Then how does he be? How's he not dead?
His ghostly self, his spirit, or we want to call it, his life force, is still it's lingered. It's lingered in the rift that's connected to the meditation plane.
So kind of
he's
like some like a little blind eternities thing. Like it's somewhere in the blind eternities, maybe. I don't
kind
know.
of
It seems like kind of. It's. I guess it's kind of unclear.
it's it's really weird because the rift was created by the battle from uh, Bolas and Leviathan, and his soul / spirit is lingering in the rift. It's also connected to the meditation plane, so it's kind of weird. But anyways, that's what happens.
But he's able to do that because at this point, still, planeswalkers are like these all-powerful beings. They're not mortal things that we know today. They're not like ultra-powerful wizards. They're actually like essentially nigh unkillable sorcerers.
Yes. Yeah, as long as you like imagine you're alive, you're basically alive. So
yeah, which
they're
is
very powerful.
Crazy.
Yeah.
The next time after he dies, we see Bolas is apparently he kind of remained there. His ghost. He like put himself into a human form.
Yes. Yeah. Something like that.
And again, this whole part is unclear-ish.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he
basically what happened is he's able to use Venser's Planeswalker Spark that has not ignited to escape his prison, and he became reborn in the physical world.
Okay. Into his dragon, his normal form.
Yes.
Okay.
So after Teferi found out, not Teferi, Venser found out that that what happened, he challenged Bolas to a battle. And
well, Teferi, after Teferi found out what happened to Venser.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Teferi fought Bolas. I apologize. Yep. After Teferi found out that Bolas used Venser's latent spark to break free, Teferi confronted Bolas and wanted to fight and battle him. And Teferi is a master of time magic. And when we say Bolas is a master of blue, black, and red magic, we literally mean he's a master of blue, red, and black magic. So even though Teferi is a master of time magic, Bolas easily beats him in a battle of blue magic.
Man, that's crazy. And he beats him with his touch. He literally just touches him.
Yep.
And then basically like rips his mind to shreds.
Mm-hmm. And from there, something crazy happens on Kamigawa. I'm not exactly sure what happens, but I know that Bolas is chasing the Mutagen of Night's Reach because she can also somehow the Mutagen of Night's Reach can like planeswalk or move between planes. I'm not 100% sure exactly what's going on there. Do you know what's going on by chance or no?
No, I am not the guy to talk to about Kamigawa lore.
Well, okay, so to be fair, it's also honestly even confusing. Like I've looked it up too, and it's very confusing. And all we know is from that point is planeswalkers realize, hey, we're too strong. We're destroying the multiverse. We need to do something. We need to fix ourselves and fix the world. And that's when the mending starts happening. When the planeswalkers decide to basically give up their power or allow their power for the mending.
Yeah. Now, as you might imagine, Nicol Bolas was not excited about this.
No.
He wants to be all-powerful all the time, and since he feels like he's more powerful than everyone else, he doesn't care how powerful everyone else is. As long as he can retain all of his power, that's what he wants. However, this event is happening. Jessica was the planeswalker who essentially set this spell into motion that slowly started changing all of everyone's planeswalker sparks to, like I said, to really just powerful wizards and not immortal sorcerers.
Yeah, and what was happening was there were rifts popping up, and they were not sure how to close these rifts. Bolas opened one when he fought the Leviathan planeswalker, and when he found out that these other planeswalkers wanted to close the rift, he's like, you know what? I'll close mine, the one I caused. He's like, I've been observing this, and he actually he closed the rift by killing. He used Lashark's life to close the rift, but after that he left for a place we don't know where he left. But basically, he said he went somewhere and came back, and he claimed that he had devised a plan to preserve himself in the event that they were able to close the rifts, all the rifts.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Go.
Jessica did cast the mending spell. It changed the total nature of the planeswalker spark, and Bolas and all the other old quote unquote old planeswalkers like Liliana, who survived past the mending, lost a huge chunk of their powers. But they still retained, their some powers, but they weren't like godly.
So we know that the planeswalkers we know that survived and existed before the change happened was Liliana Vess, Sword Markov, and Nahiri, and Nicol Bolas, of course.
Yes.
We know those for sure. So now
and
this
Ugin,
is
right?
we'll talk about Ugin in a second. This is a really big part of the story because this is essentially both in our in real human being points and story points. This is like the line where it was drawn. This is where at the end of the Time Spiral block, which is the card set Future Sight, before Lorwyn, this is when all of this happened, and this is when Planeswalker cards existed. They were starting at Lorwyn. And this is when they started having stories specifically around these planeswalkers. So this was a gigantic. This is essentially the biggest thing that's ever happened in any Magic story, and any character who crossed over between the new essentially the new part of the Magic story and the part before the Magic story, they are involved in this mending. Every single character. Now, you talked about Ugin. Ugin, and obviously we'll talk about Ugin a little bit later, but Nicol Bolas' involvement with Ugin is during the time where Nicol Bolas and all Planeswalkers were all powerful, he went to Tarkir, which is where Ugin was, and essentially fights and kills Ugin. Now, we know that ultimately this ends up undoing itself when Sarkhan goes back in time, undoes the battle, kind of, and makes Ugin basically come back to life. But during the time, as far as we know, Nicol Bolas doesn't know that Ugin is either still alive or was alive at the time. And again, this is doing more time stuff, so we're not exactly sure because we haven't really interacted with Tarkir. Even though I feel like that's going to be a pretty important part of the story at some point later.
Yes. Yeah.
So while they're both Old Walkers, Bolas battled and killed Ugin. That's depicted on the card Crux of Fate, which is a really sweet card. Now you were saying a second ago that right before the mending happened, that Bolas left for an unknown destination and then came back, right?
Yes.
Now, while we don't technically know where he went, I think we can kind of piece it together. We know that Nicol Bolas, right before the mending happened, that's when Nicol Bolas first went to Amonkhet.
Yes.
Bolas went to Amonkhet and fought with the 8 gods at the time, and essentially was setting this plane up for what we still don't even know. Obviously, we've talked about our theories, And we'll talk about the last part of Amonkhet a little bit later. But when he went the first time, he was all powerful. The gods had never interacted with a planeswalker and anything more powerful than themselves.
Yes.
He basically beats them all without breaking a sweat.
Well, he's weakened. He's still pretty many, but he's still weakened because of what's happening.
He's starting to get weaker.
Yes, he actually is able to beat them all because he's able to cast a spell that kills all the adults in Amonkhet, which in turn weakens the gods. And then he's able to convince Bantu to help him betray her brothers and sisters and maintain what he does to them afterwards. And this is why he's able to beat all of them. I don't think it was very easily, actually, but I do think because of all the things he did make it easier. Because he was still weakened, he wasn't still his full power because the rifts were closing and he was becoming weaker as the mending was happening.
And when that was happening, he essentially took 3 of the gods and tucked them away. That's what we know as the Scarab God, Locust God, and Scorpion God. To enact his plan at some point in the future, which obviously has happened now. We'll get to a little bit later in the story. And all of this happened right before the mending, when Bolas knew he was going to be losing his immense Planeswalker abilities. So, literally, launch this plan centuries, he's on top of it.
Yep, and also like the Eldrazi, Bolas actually warped the Angels of Amonkhet to serve as his agents, which is kind of strange, but he did that too.
Yeah. So after Amonkhet sets that in motion, he goes to Alara, right, where he resides in the part that's called Grixis. But the thing about Alara is, someone shattered Alara into the 5 shards into Bant, Esper, Grixis, Jund, and Naya, but we don't know who that planeswalker was who shattered it. We just know that Nicol Bolas goes back there and resides at Grixis because he wants to mend the plane so that he can absorb the Maelstrom Nexus and get a lot of his power back. And of course he goes to Grixis because that's where his link to the mana of the world is going to be strongest.
Yes.
Being blue, red, and black mana specifically.
Yes. It's just interesting too, though, because I really wonder who shattered the plane to begin with, and we don't know who shattered the plane.
I have no doubt that sometime in the future, I don't want to say near future, but sometime in the future, that we're definitely going to go back to Alara, because there's a lot that's happened then, and it was actually a pretty important place as far as Nicol Bolas' story and the story of a couple other planeswalkers. So while he is on Alara, that's where Nicol Bolas encounters Tezzeret. Tezzeret essentially was a mage from Esper who just ascended to become a planeswalker. Planeswalks not away from Alara, but actually to Grixis. And he's fighting off all of these monsters. And at the very end, after he's weakened down, Bolas comes up to him and he's like, "Look, I will make sure that you are taken care of as long as you just serve me." And as we know now, Tezzeret accepts this offer. So
yes, and then there's a part 2 where Jace and Tezzeret actually fight, and Jace, not fully control of his mind or his powers, actually mind shatters or destroys Tezzeret's mind, where Tezzeret doesn't know who he is or what he is or what's going on. And then Bolas walks in and is able to reshape his mind to how he wants it. And that's when Tezzeret the Seeker also becomes Tezzeret Agent of Bolas, because he's actually shaped by Nicol Bolas himself. And that's from the book Agents of Artifice. So I'm not sure if that's actually in this. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's unclear whether Agents of Artifice and the other books are still canon, but it kind of seems like they are. I'm not 100% sure, but it seems like they are based on the kind of the last year of Magic story.
Yeah. I'm not sure either exactly, but that did happen too. So it's interesting.
So after Tezzeret is basically just mind crushed. That's when Bolas essentially takes full control over him and kind of rebuilds him in his image.
Yeah.
Both physically and mentally. So we're still on Alara, or the 5 shards. But as the conflux is happening, he meets Sarkin Fall, who at that time is essentially completely obsessed with dragons. So
he wants to worship a dragon. He's looking for a dragon to worship.
He's literally looking for a dragon to worship. Yeah. So he finds this gigantic dragon who is hyper intelligent, who is willing to essentially talk to him. And of course, we know Bolas at this point is like, one of the most manipulative beings as he possibly can. So he convinces Sarkin to also go into his service, and then he kind of becomes his agent on Naya. He has Tezzeret on Esper, Sarkin on Naya. So he's just working all of these shards to make sure that he can be prepared when the conflux, or the conflux of the planes actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
So this is also when one of the only other times that Bolas is kind of defeated, and that is when Ajani, who is looking for the person who killed his brother, finds Bolas, believing that he was the person that killed his brother. We don't actually know if Bolas was or not.
Yes, at this time, Bolas has consumed or absorbed most of the Maelstrom Nexus. Ajani confronts him and realizes he has no chance against Nicol Bolas. So he actually... Well, Ajani has some type of magic or power where he can basically draw on your soul and have a fight. We see this in Soul Majesty, which is Ajani bringing out a soul of one of his prides in fighting. Mm-hmm. So what happens is Ajani draws on the soul of Nicol Bolas. He basically extracts Nicol Bolas' soul and makes it bite himself. Nicol Bolas and the soul both attack each other. They both bite each other's neck and then disappear. And from that point on, we don't know what happened to Nicol Bolas or how badly he was injured or what's going on. But we do know Ajani basically did kind of defeat Nicol Bolas in that way.
Yeah, he certainly didn't lose.
Yes.
Anytime Nicol Bolas leaves without either killing you or giving you the option to leave on your own, I think that's considered a win. This meant that Bolas did not get all of the mana and power from the Maelstrom Nexus, but he did get a lot of it because this was all happening while the shards were converging.
Yes.
So, and ultimately, we still don't know what Bolas's plan is. What Bolas's plan is.
Yes, we don't. We know he had wanted. We know he wants to become as powerful as he was before the mending, but we really don't want. We don't know where he's going, what his plans are, what his ultimate goal is, what he wants to do. We just know that he's gone to. He's absorbed the Maelstrom Nexus. He's gone to Amonkhet for the Lazotep because he's very interested in the Lazotep there, and he's also doing other things that we won't get into just yet. Because otherwise it's going to be a very long story.
Yeah, we could talk about Bolas for hours. We don't want to leave out any of the details. So this is part 1. This is going to be we're going to call this part 1 of Story Circle Nicol Bolas. We will definitely be back with part 2 at some point in the future. So since this is a new topic for us, Story Circle, you guys should definitely let us know what type of, where you want to hear the stories from. You want to hear the stories from certain planes. You want to hear about certain characters. We can do all of that. Let us know at jparnell1, at Ali Aintrazi on Twitter. Let us know exactly what you guys want to hear.
Yeah, let us know if there's something you're interested in. So,
okay,
we want to know if we can do this or not.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to wrap up Story Circle for today. And now we're actually going to go and talk a little bit about Hearthstone and how it relates to Magic with its new expansion. Okay, Ali. So, uh, as people may or may not know, both you and I are Hearthstone players.
Hearthstone pros.
Sure. Well, I'll you can be more of a Hearthstone pro than me. But both of us have played Hearthstone for the better part of like 5 years now since the beta, right?
Yes, I actually didn't play in the beta, but I played as soon as it actually became live.
Yes, I did too. Like essentially right when it became live. I think our friend Stefan Mercatoris got both of us. He got me into Hearthstone.
Oh, definitely both of us. I was actually at the beach. We're all just hanging out, chilling, and was playing this game. It was like, you should play. We play a little bit, and then we do like an arena, which is basically like a Hearthstone equivalent to draft. And we were hooked from. I think we were both hooked from that point on.
Yeah, definitely. So last week, Hearthstone's newest expansion called Knights of the Frozen Throne was released.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, this is mainly a Magic podcast, so we're not going to just talk about Magic, or we're not just going to talk about Hearthstone, but I want to talk about how Hearthstone relates to Magic.
Yes.
This is something that this is probably going to be a recurring topic, not necessarily Hearthstone, but other card games. Magic is the progenitor of all other card games.
Oh,
whether
yeah.
whether it's physical card games, whether it's digital card games, everything is drawing from Magic at some point. So,
absolutely. It's hard not to. Like when you're going to make a card game, your first thing is, hey, who's been in this business forever, and who's done it the most, and who's had the most success? And Magic is the one that's been here since day one.
Yeah. It literally started. It chose when day one was. It was day one.
And it lived.
Yeah,
forever.
For
still alive.
We're going on 25 years next year.
Yes.
So
it's thriving.
Yeah. At this point, it's crazy. Magic is older than most of the people that play Magic.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about. I mean, I've been playing, but both you and I are approaching each of us 20 years playing Magic, which is
it's weird because
crazy to think about.
Yeah, like you think about games like World of Warcraft. That game was awesome and so huge, but then eventually died down. Even like people like other MMOs like Final Fantasy 11, it was so big, crazy, then died down. All these games like start out big, then like over time died down. Card games, not card games, like even like Dragon Ball Z card game, the Warcraft card game, bunch of them. But Magic just continues to get bigger every year. Like it just continues to draw more and more people.
It's crazy that it's never really had this. Like it dips down every once in a while, but it never goes away. It's not Magic's not a fad at this point. This has been around for a long time. Obviously, you guys know that this is not news. Everyone knows how long Magic's been around. But one thing, as we get into this space where we now have a lot of other card games that are thriving in a digital space, this is something where we can kind of turn the tables and say, well, what can Magic learn from these other games? Yeah. Hearthstone is a big one. So is Hex, which is honestly, I mean, really just a Magic clone. The Pokemon TCG, basically any other card game that exists in a digital space. One of the new mechanics in the new Hearthstone expansion is Life Drain. And this is literally essentially just lifelink in Magic.
Mm-hmm.
It's on creatures, it's on minions in Hearthstone. It's on minions, it's on spells, and it essentially functions exactly like lifelink does in Magic. With one really important difference, not difference in the mechanic necessarily, but difference in Hearthstone, is I think Life Drain is actually even more powerful in Hearthstone than it is in Magic. Do you have any idea why I'm saying that?
Because life total is higher? No, actually, I don't know. I don't know why. Why?
Because you cannot interact with your opponent on their turn. In Magic, if you have a creature with lifelink, you can kill it on your opponent's turn as they're attacking.
Yep.
There's no counterspells. There's one card called Counterspell, but you don't get to choose what you're counterspelling all the time. So you can have these gigantic swingy plays in Hearthstone where a creature or spell has lifelink, and you gain a ton of life back, and there's not really anything your opponent can do about it.
Yeah, but there's a cap on your life in Magic or in Hearthstone where there's not in Magic. We can if you have
That's true. That's true.
If you have like a 20/20, you gain 20 life. This is a little off topic just a tiny bit, but life drain is lifelink again in Hearthstone, which kind of fine too because life drain is also lifelink and hex. It's literally lifelink and hex too, so it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine that Hearthstone and hex both went with life drain for lifelink on creatures and spells.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
So that's not the only new mechanic in this set. There's also a new card type called Hero. Now, this is a card that's not a spell, it's not a weapon, it's not a minion. It's a new card type that when you play it, your hero, and you pick 1 of 9 heroes when you're playing Hearthstone. Each of your heroes has an ability that you can pay 2 for to use the ability. It changes your hero into this new hero with a new ability and essentially casts a big spell for you for free.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say we don't really have anything like that in Magic, kind of, but the closest thing we have is like alternate formats in Magic, like Vanguard. Vanguard is essentially like Heroes are in Hearthstone, where you're starting the game. You have in Vanguard, it affects your starting life total and your starting hand size, and you get an ability that you can use by doing whatever it says. Sometimes the passive ability, it says when something happens, do this other thing, or an ability that you can activate, just like you can on a regular creature or enchantment, artifact, whatever. So these are, to me, and this might seem like a stretch, so hear me out. The new hero cards, and they're called Death Knights in this expansion. These are the Planeswalkers of Hearthstone.
But I was going to say Magic does kind of have these cards. They're very hard to find. They're very hard to do in paper. But I think one of the better examples we have is Form of the Dragon. Form of the Dragon enchantment, it says creatures without flying can attack you. Your health is reduced to 5 basically, and you gain 5. You go back to 5 at the end of each turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can deal, I think it's 5 damage to a creature or player. So Form of the Dragon basically, the lore wise, it is an enchantment, but you literally become a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
You're no longer a planeswalker, but you're now a dragon. So you're flying. So that's why creatures without flying can't attack you. And also your health, instead of being 20, is reduced to 5. But you are also a creature. Again, you're a dragon. So at the end of combat, you gain all your life back. So this happens at the end of each turn with Form of the Dragon. And you also get to deal 5 damage like a dragon would on the game returns. So I was going to say, I'm not sure if it's kind of like Planeswalkers, but it's also different because it transforms you.
Yeah, I don't think it's like Planeswalkers as much from a mechanical perspective as it is from like how it feels about the game. Like, okay, do you believe that in Magic, Planeswalker cards are generally the most hyped and most desirable cards in each set?
Yeah. Yes, I would say that.
I think so too. And I think these heroes fit that same mold. This is a completely new card type. It functionally changes how the game is played by adding an element that has not been encountered before. All of them for this go. I think this is going to be something that's recurring because this is probably going to be arguably the most well-liked mechanic that they've ever done. All of the cards are really good. Hearthstone's economy doesn't really exist because you can't trade with other players, you can't buy singles, but you can have cards that you open out of booster packs, and then you can what is referred to as dusting them, and you transfer them into this resource called Arcane Dust, and then you can use Arcane Dust to craft cards.
Yes.
Legendary cards, which are like Mythic Rares and Magic, cost 1,600 dust to craft. So these are like the chase mythics of the set, but there's 9 of them, and they're all good. and everyone wants to play with them in all of their decks. That's why I think these are like Planeswalkers. These remind me of like the first Lorwyn 5 Planeswalkers, which are like, still in my opinion, the best group of like Planeswalkers that have existed. Maybe either that one or the very next one that happened in Alara block with the 4 in Shards of Alara and then Nicol Bolas in the next set. Is really like the only time that I've seen a group of Planeswalkers come out all at once and be like, man, every single one of those is good. So that's why I feel like Death Knights are like Planeswalkers.
That's fair enough. I think this space is just a very good digital space where you basically can become something else. We also see this again, a little off tangent, in Hex, where there's a card called Psychic Ascension, where if you play enough spells, it reduces the card by a certain amount. But when you play it, you ascend. You become this thing where if you would cast an instant or sorcery spell, you create a random creature at the same cost and put into play. So you get this cool ability where you can do that anytime you cast a spell. Yeah. Basically win the game. But it seems like that's kind of like Death Knight, where you basically like transform to something else, something better usually, something stronger.
Yep.
And it seems to be happening a lot in the digital space more so than the card space. Because again, like I feel like this is the closest thing we have to in Magic is Form of the Dragon. After that, it's Form of the Squirrel. Are you familiar with that one?
The one from Unhinged?
Yeah.
You become a 1/1? Yeah.
Yeah, well, you become a 1/1. Yeah, so basically Form of the Squirrel is one green. It says, and it comes into play, put a 1/1 green squirrel creature token on the battlefield. You lose the game when it leaves play. Creatures can't attack you. You can't even target spells or abilities. You can't play spells. So it's a very weird, very strange card.
Super weird card, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why it's an unhinged card, of course.
Yes, but
we've already talked about how we both feel about those sets.
We did, yeah. But I think Form of spells is the best comparison. But I can also see what you mean by Planeswalkers.
Yeah, I think you're right from a mechanical standpoint, from like a card mechanic standpoint. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you that. I'll give you a point for that.
A point, thank you.
Yeah, 1 point.
Appreciate it.
So what is, or I was gonna say, what is the biggest difference from Hearthstone to Magic is actually the card restriction rule, which says in Hearthstone you can play 2 of any card except for cards that are the legendary rarity, which is basically like mythic rares. And every single card that's legendary you can only play 1 of in any deck ever.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really interesting mechanic for this game, and this is not this is not new. You have this in Vintage and Magic where they restrict things down to 1. The difference is between that, and this is actually a conversation I was having with my friend that I used to work with at Star City, Tim Chesnakis, who is probably listening right now. The big difference is in Magic, that's not something that's intended. They don't intend to make cards that they're immediately going to restrict or that they're immediately going to ban.
Yeah.
That happens. That essentially happens on accident. They design essentially every card to be able to be played as a 4 of in every format that it can be legal in.
Yeah. Literally the only formats like that's competitive is Vintage.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Other than Commander, which is all 1 of, but that's something entirely different.
It's like competitive. Well, I guess it can be competitive, but I meant like actually.
Yeah, like a sanctioned format.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I think that you can't do this in Magic is anytime you're going out of your way to make a card that you're saying, okay, this card's so powerful we can only play 1 of, it creates this crazy, it warps the game around those cards every time they come up. Whether it's for you, whether it's for your opponent. Imagine if you're a new player and you play against one of these cards. If a card is so powerful that 1, it's seeing competitive play, and 2, if it is seeing competitive play, it's so powerful you can only play 1 of it, that's always going to be that and the cards that fill that same class of cards are always going to be the best cards in your deck. And that's a really dangerous thing to do with Magic, where the difference between 4 cards and 1 card is enormous, and the difference in Hearthstone between 1 card and 2 cards is actually still pretty big, but not nearly as big as it is in Magic.
Yes. Well, also regarding the, I was going to say it's not really a free spell, but being a powerful spell you can only play one of. Those games don't have tutors. Like there's no demonic tutor in Hearthstone. You can't continuously tutor this spell. You can't also regrowth it. Let's say like we had a spell that did something crazy, like 1 mana, like Recall. Let's say Recall was legal and standard. You can only play 1.
Yep.
But Magic has tutors. Magic has spells that regrow spells. Magic has things we can recur, like constantly abuse this effect where you're playing 1, but you will find it a lot more than you should.
Yeah. The perfect example. If Ancestral Recall was legal in standard, every game of Magic would be resolved around casting Ancestral Recall as many times as you could.
Yeah, like Treasure Cruise.
Yeah,
that's close.
Yeah, like Treasure Cruise. So I don't know. I think that now a whole different topic, which I don't think we have time to get into today, but something I want to talk about if everyone wants to hear about it, is what can Magic learn from Hearthstone in a digital gaming sense? We know that Magic Online exists right now. It is a pretty close analogy to how Magic is played in real life, kind of not really. I'll talk about my feelings for Magic Online at a later time, but we do know that Magic's digital portion, which I think is like Magic Digital Studios, is doing a new digital platform that's called Magic Digital Next, and their new online game is going to be called Magic the Gathering Arena. Mm-hmm. We don't really know a lot of things about this at this point. We've seen a couple of like promotional pictures for it. We don't really know, but I have to imagine from a business standpoint, they're building this to compete with Hearthstone and Pokemon and Hex and all of these other games that are coming up. Gwent is a new one that people that people are playing online instead of playing Magic Online. So as we get closer to that, that's a topic I really want to explore, is what can Magic learn? Once we figure out what they're trying to do, what can Magic learn from these other games? If you guys have anything that you think that Magic can learn from all of these other digital card games, let us know at jparnell1, at Ali Aintrazi on Twitter. We would love to hear you guys' thoughts. Ollie, any other thoughts on Hearthstone, new set as it relates to Magic or otherwise?
Real quick, I just wanted to say the one-of spell, I think Magic did kind of explore that a little bit with the epic spells and like Enduring Ideal.
Oh, yeah.
They made the spell so powerful that when you cast it, it does a very powerful effect, but you can only cast it one time and it keeps happening. You can't cast anything else. But I just wanted to say that, throw that out there real quick. But yeah, that's all I had.
No, that's definitely a good one. I tried to wipe that from my memory because it's from Kamigawa Block. So,
I think you just say Kamigawa.
What now? Why would you ever get that idea?
I don't know. I think we should revisit it. I think they can improve upon it, and I think the hate is just unjustified. So,
what are you trying to say?
I think your hate is unjustified.
You trying to say I'm poo-pooing on Kamigawa?
Well, that's a fact.
You're damn right I'm poo-pooing on Kamigawa. I'm poo-pooing on it hard. More than poo-pooing on anything else on this show.
I know.
Okay. All right. All right, guys. That is the show for today. We are going to be back in a second and wrap up. Okay, so speaking of things that I hate, just kidding. I was going to say Legacy, but I don't hate Legacy.
That's good.
I don't hate Legacy, and I'm actually going to be playing in a Legacy event this weekend, like a little local event at the Star City Game Center.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
What are you going to play?
I am going to play Death Shadow, but last time, so at the Classic in Atlanta, as we talked about before, I got second place with a Sultai Death Shadow deck.
Yep.
This time I'm going to try to play a Grixis Death Shadow deck.
Ooh, baby.
Yeah.
Are you going to let us know what the red's for, or no?
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. Good friend Christopher McCurry, after I was the week after I played in Atlanta, I was talking to him about it, and he was like, "Have you thought about red?" And I was like, I mean, Lightning Bolt's okay. I don't really know what else you get. He's like, "What about Price of Progress?"
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's pretty good because
that is a powerful thing. You don't even have to shock yourself as much because you can just search out your regular lands.
Yeah, and price.
And then price, and then lose a bunch of life. It's basically like Berserk and like Fire Blast all rolled into one card. Because if you attack, you can literally attack with like a 1/1 Death Shadow. And if you Price of Progress and your opponent has 3 lands, like 3 non-basics in play, and you have 3 non-basics in play,
they die.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're taking 12 just from the price, like the combination of the
price and shadow.
Price and shadow, yeah.
Yeah,
and it shores up what I believe is one of that deck's biggest weaknesses, which is like a traditional lands deck. Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. I think the hardest part is going to be the balancing the fetching and chalking and pricing, and I think it's going to be a tough balance, but.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, fortunately, I got my reps in during the Open when we were doing the team event.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, so I feel more comfortable with, playing Death Shadow's deck now.
yeah.
So, yeah, no, that's what I'm going to try to do. I haven't finalized my deck list yet. I'm still kind of going over all the numbers in my head because it doesn't change that much. It only is going to change like 2 cards in the main deck, but it definitely changes the sideboard. So, I don't know. I'm just going to I'm gonna mess around. I'm gonna mess around with a couple of different configurations, but I will definitely let everyone know how it goes next weekend.
Sweet.
All right. Well, what do you got going on?
All right. So this weekend I'm doing the Hex Bash. The Hex Bash is a constructed event for Hex. It's standard, basically equivalent to standard. It's a 1K you play online. So Hex has 2 1Ks. They have one 1K for standard, one 1K for basically limited every week. And I'm going to play them in my first constructed one this Saturday, which should be fun.
Oh, that's cool. You said this is the first constructed one you've played in?
Yeah, the last one was last week, but I was in Richmond, and so I was not able to play in it, but I should be able to play in it this Saturday.
That's cool.
Also, both our good friends, Stefan is going to be in Charlotte. He's doing some kind of meeting, I believe, around Charlotte. I'm not sure exactly what he's doing, but if he gets down in time, I'm also going to grab dinner with him to chat. So that'll be fun too.
Nice. Once we Stefan Mercatoris is one of our oldest mutual friends, and you should talk to him about the podcast and try to convince him. We're going to start having guests at some point in the future. I don't want to say near future, but definitely some point in the future that's not too far away. You should try to convince him to come and talk about something on the show because he's like an ultra interesting person.
Oh, he is. I'll let Stefan. I'm pretty sure. I'm sure he would. It'd be great to have him on here too because he's we're both very good friends with him. We both love Stefan, and I think it'd be a blast.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. You guys. I promise you guys would enjoy listening to him. He's super entertaining. He's a gamer too, knowledgeable about stuff. Yeah. No, I think that's. You got what else you got? Is that it?
That's actually all I got for this Saturday.
Beautiful. Well, in that case, I guess that is the show for today. Ali, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, on Facebook, or on Twitch with the respective online thing, like twitter.com/Ali Aintrazi. That's ALI, and the word Eldrazi, which is ELDRAZI. That's my Twitter handle, Facebook, and Twitch. Also, my articles come out every Friday on gatheringmagic.com. So they come out at the same time as this podcast. So if you want to head on over there, you can check out my articles. They come out every Friday.
Oh, very, very nice.
What about you, Parnell?
As always, you can find me on Twitter at jparnell1. You can also find me every Wednesday, 11 a.m. on Commander Versus. I'm the host of that show on StarCityGames.com and YouTube. Now, if you're looking for this show, obviously you're listening to it on some sort of device, but you can follow us on SoundCloud, on iTunes, and on YouTube. You can search for Thinktwice and Thinktwice MTG on all of those to find what you're looking for there. You can also contact the show and follow us on Twitter at ThinktwiceMTG on Twitter, and you can also email us if you have any comments, suggestions, or feedback. We'd love to hear all of that. ThinktwiceMTG@gmail.com. We don't have our Patreon up because, I'm gonna be honest, I'm like Patreon stupid. So we're gonna get it figured out. I need Ali's help with that, which is why I'm saying it on the show, because I need help. I'm begging.
All right, I got you.
Begging, please.
I got you.
So we're going to get that set up soon. Also want to give a special thanks to John Choi, our director and producer, as well as Amber West, who handles our graphic design. We could not do either of this without them. Okay.
All right.
Ali.
Well, no. I love you.
Oh, I love you too, buddy. All right. We love you guys too. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.